Hi again. This is Andrew Culkin. Again, I'm the author of Amanda, A Cautionary Tale. It's a life story, really the story of my wife's last 20 years of her life, and her struggle, her very difficult struggle with alcoholism, and ultimately her passing away a little over 2 years ago. And I wrote the story really to help other families because I have a lot of knowledge about this disease, how it affects families, how it affects alcoholics, what to do, where to go. I plan on doing a lot of training on this. One of the things, and this particular topic is a little bit more difficult than most because it really pertains to someone who has become a chronic alcoholic. And a chronic alcoholic is really somebody who doesn't have very many options left. They've really gotten to the point where they are emotionally, physically, and mentally attached to the alcoholism, and their addiction has completely taken over themselves and their lives. And this is something that you have to get to the point where, as a family member or someone close to that person, you have to make very tough decisions sometimes because you don't want to go down with the ship, and sometimes you have to save yourself. Or find a way to deal with it in some way. But these are 5 ways to conclude that a loved one is a lost cause and that you need to move on, regardless of that relationship. If it's a husband and wife relationship, if it's a parent-child relationship, or even a child-parent relationship. There's a lot of different dichotomies that you can make. But if you're around somebody who's an alcoholic and they're a family member or a close person or a significant other, you get to the point where you got to make a decision. One of the ways is that to recognize that it's time to move on. I might read some of these too, but they have become a danger to themselves and anyone around themselves. Example, okay, they've had DUIs, they've attended rehabs, 2, 3, maybe more. They've lost their freedom privileges. In other words, they've been to jail on related items, on related issues attached to alcoholism, like DUIs, several. And nothing stops them from continuing to drink. No matter what the drama that they've created, nothing stops. This is an indication that they may be a lost cause. Not completely, but when someone's been drinking for 5 or 10 or for several years, their chances of recovery are less than 5%, more like 2%, which is pretty close to impossible. People have done it, but it's the longer the alcoholic, the more difficult. Another one, they have a restricted license or a revoked license. They've had several DUIs. They're getting a lot of traffic problems. They're getting in trouble with the law, and they still continue to drink. And they drive on a regular basis, no matter what the consequences. I'll give you an example. I can tell you about my wife. She, at one period, she had, her license was revoked. She was uninsurable. In other words, an insurance company would not insure her because she had so many DUIs, or it was... the cost of the insurance would be more than the cost of the actual vehicle she was driving. It was that ridiculous. And the truck was not registered. I wouldn't register the truck for that particular reason. And it was a walking billboard for pull me over. And she would drive drunk. Sometimes I always tried to hide the keys, and there was times when she found the keys. That's just the way it was, especially near the end. So we're talking about a person who was driving drunk, uninsured vehicle, unlicensed vehicle on a revoked license. It's an accident waiting to happen, and it did more than once. This is a person who you have to make the conclusion that it's time to move on. These are just examples. Another one is they have attended several rehab inpatient stays. They've been in a rehab for 30, 60, 90 days, more than once. They've never continued with their aftercare, and this is vital to anybody that's been in a rehab situation. Unless you do the work after a rehab facility, You're wasting your time. You know, you've wasted that rehab time, that time of group counseling, that break with your addiction. It's a 30-day break. It's a significant break, and if you don't use that momentum to go to AA meetings, to get a sponsor, to get somebody who's an accountability partner, and to continue to do the work as an alcoholic, and to continue to work on your disease, you're just going to continue. And if you refuse, to do the follow-up care, the aftercare, the people who are around that alcoholic, and it's really time to think about parting ways, because this person is not taking it seriously, or they've become too addicted that they've actually become a lost cause. And there will come a time where you've come to that conclusion. There's nothing you can do to that person, and you need to move on, no matter what the relationship. No matter what the relationship. I can't pronounce that better. Another one, this is a good one. I'm going to read this to you. They are in a deep and obvious denial, no matter how much drama and misery they have created in their life and in the lives of the people that they're around. They never take ownership for any of their actions, and they always blame all of their actions on other people. Their narcissistic lifestyle has grown to dominate their personality, and they're completely oblivious to this. They have become the victim of their own creation, and they are blissfully unaware. An example of this, and I mean, there's always an excuse. A lot of alcoholics will have excuse-itis, or they will simply ignore the problem completely, like it never happened, and they will just not talk about it until time goes by and no one wants to talk about it. Perfect example. A couple of years before my wife passed away, somehow she got the car keys. She was gone for several hours. Drove her car through the garage door of our house. We had a three-car garage, and unfortunately I was standing on the other side of the garage, but I could hear her coming up the driveway, and I jumped out of the way just in time, and she crashed through the garage door. Lucky I wasn't killed. The only thing that stopped her from continuing into driving into the house, into the living room, was the garage door wrapped around the front of the car and actually used as a brake for the car, because her foot was still stuck on the pedal. I ran around the front of the car, opened the door, and I had to physically take her foot off the gas pedal, because she was passed out in the front seat and she was driving her car. This is an example of you've had enough. You're a danger to yourself and everyone around. I'm sure anybody in this situation, there's a lot of particular similar examples. The problem is, her attitude was, this only happened once. I'm sorry. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. And that was the time where it's just about near the end for us. That's just a good example. Another one is they black out on a regular basis. They disappear for days at a time without explanation or concern, and are regularly in an emergency room for alcoholic-related issues. There was one time Amanda had been to a rehab. This is another good example. And it was probably maybe 2 weeks out of a rehab. So I was feeling a little bit liberal in allowing her to use the car key. She wanted to make something for dinner. She needed some specific items, and the grocery store was less than 2 miles away. And I gave her the car keys, and we didn't see her again for 3 days, my son and I. No text, didn't answer phone calls, had no idea where she was. 3 days. And she'd been out of a rehab for 2 weeks. Eventually, a police officer called me and said that they had found her in a park, passed out, completely, drunk out of her mind. That's how he described it. And they took her to the emergency room, where I found her. and almost unrecognizable. And luckily, the truck, her car, was still parked in the same place that she had left it. At least she was smart enough to keep that in a safe place. But this is 2 weeks out of a rehab, and she was beyond reproach. These are the kind of actions where you have to conclude that it's time to move on. This kind of extreme drama is when you have to make that decision when it's time to move on. And I hope this has helped. I hope this has created some ideas for families out there when they're facing that reality. Because when the person gets to this point, they're not going to get any better. They're not going to get any better. Or if the chances of them to getting any better are so slim that it's better for yourself to move on. I hope that helps you make your decision. And I hope you're able to, carry on and have a better life with this information. If you would, again, the website to pre-order the book is www.amandacautionarytale.com. I'd love for, please like and share this video. Also, join us on our Facebook group. It's the same name, Amanda, A Cautionary Tale. I'll be glad to enter you into the group. We talk about these kind of topics, and we have excerpts from the book and a lot of things that are going on about the book and about this story. So again, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.